I think it was Simon Beard that said it, like the best time to sell is when you don't want to sell, and the worst time to sell is when you have to sell.
Yeah.
I think founders often confuse like a funding round, the multiples that you'll get, which is really artificial, versus an M&A.
How long before we have AI to replace the founder? Like, just be able to sit here and just say, rather than AI build a product, but AI actually build a business. So I have this idea, go and validate it for me. I have this idea, go and build the product stack. I have this idea, go and build the marketing engine.
When we talked about having a podcast for a VC fund, I never thought we would be using the lines, wax a butthole. Even though a lot of portfolio performance feels like that at times.
Good morning, lads. How are we?
Bloody awesome. How are you both?
Very good.
Jack?
Yeah, I'm going good. It's pretty cold, but besides that.
Now, Ash is at Sunrise, having a great time by the sounds of things. She said that it was less of a technology conference, more of like a philosophy class. So
I'm fascinated what they talked about then.
So she won't be joining this episode, which has meant I've maybe gone a little wilder on the schedule than normal. It also is that this schedule is quite a long schedule, so we don't have time for niceties. I couldn't give a shit what has happened to you in the last week.
That's all right. We've seen enough of each other this last week. It's all good.
If it's all right, we're going to skip all of that so we can get onto it, because we also have a hard stop with a discussion with one of our former portfolio, which I'm really excited to be a part of.
Yeah, looking forward to that one.
A few recap items. So tariffs have been something we've been discussing for a while, and I've just had a bit of a feeling. Remember COVID? Like the news of COVID and everything was around for quite some time before the markets broke. And that's what tends to happen because we're such an ETF-driven, automated trading. Like if you have a look at what options are doing to change the markets, what tends to happen is the markets levitate for a bit and find it really hard to digest the news compared to like 15 years, 20 years ago. And I saw a post from Joe Andon, who's the CEO and chairman and founder of Vuli, which is the trampoline company. I bought my third Vuli and installed one at the farm, which kids, and we got the big one, like 10 kids on there, speakers, they had dance parties at nights. It's like literally the best childcare that I've installed at the farm.
They are so good. We just actually pulled down our what could be our last one as the kids are getting older.
That's sad. But what Joe said in his post, because he brings everything in from China, right? He said, my people at the port in China are telling me that import exports between the USA and China have seen volumes drop by more than 90%. He really hopes they start talking soon. He said he started to look back in history, and the last time something like this actually happened was when USA cut off Japan after Pearl Harbor. Obviously, we're not there yet, but businesses like Vuli and most toy companies are really doing it tough right now. It still hasn't hit the wider public, but it's becoming obvious if something doesn't happen soon, we'll start to see empty shelves in the US in the coming weeks. And if you think of inflation and empty shelves and panic and whatever else. So I just thought that was an interesting one because a lot of the things I'm seeing, it's almost like we're sleepwalking into a series of problems if this doesn't get resolved.
Yeah, totally agree. And COVID highlighted just there is no fat in our supply chains. They've been optimized for such efficiency that when boats stop, the shelves quickly run out.
And for me, it's not about trying to forecast the future too much or get too doom and gloom and go and dig a hole and create a bunker. But it's good to sometimes understand what market conditions we're in. And is this a time to be super bullish, super growth orientated, super everything's going to be fine in the world? I'm not sure. The second little item is that we often talk about pricing power and durability. Now, we're Xero users. Jack, Xero is a competitor to Myobi.
You're never going to live that down.
But they put up their price again. So last year it went from 65 to 70 a month, then 70 to 75. It's not going to be far off until we're at what would it take before you actually got jack of it and changed? I think it's going to be a little while, but the reality is my accountant uses it, and that means I've really got to use it if we want to get that efficiency, because the accountant's hourly rates far outstrip the monthly cost of this. This is what we mean by pricing power. Just the price is going to continue to go up, and we're going to suck it.
Completely. I'm looking at the price going up, and especially when you add in like payroll, and we need foreign currency features. It's like, it's starting to get expensive. But
I've
the
got
efficiency.
I've got 2 dormant companies that.
Yeah, same. I'm paying for
Still
zero
paying.
on stuff where it's like, why do I have that anymore? But it's just,
Wait, so Don, on the 2 dormant companies, you're paying $75 a month.
Yeah.
Wow.
Which I've now got we moved out of using a trust, and then there's an entity that's dormant because there's got a whole lot of tax losses, but every now and then the accountant wants to shift some stuff through, so they want to keep it open. But surely there's got to be a way to export all the stuff, and then maybe at tax time, because there's so few transactions, let's just keep it in a spreadsheet.
yeah. Marin's just shifted one of hers to another platform. That seems to be going well, but we've still got 2 that are just dormant, sitting there. We need to move.
But this is your lane, Jack. This is for this whole episode, Jack. There's some stuff that's a little wider than normal. And what I need from you is, my favorite line on this podcast is always when you step in and go, what the takeaway is for founders. So I really need you to be playing the role, because as we get deeper into this episode, there is some rabbit holes and you need to be bringing us back out. But could we start with something simple here, please?
I suppose this is just a textbook example of pricing power, and this is a consistent year-on-year increase. It's not something's coming out of the blue. They've forecasted this, and it's the same time that happened last year. And the same thing happens on LinkedIn. Every accountant's up there, uproar, but no one's moving. So it's just a great example for founders to analyze.
And often in some of the pitches, you'll say, where's the pricing power? And founders sometimes look at you a bit confused. Like, it's just, can you continue to increase prices in the future without a massive loss?
I don't think founders really understand it. And when we talk about a structural competitive advantage, it's really just, do we believe you have pricing power, or do we believe you're on a pathway to having pricing power? And all that means is the margins today will hold true, if not get better, because we don't want to invest in a product that is at 80% margins now at a pre-series A, but as you develop, it's only going to shrink and then go down to, let's say, 65. And that's because when you go to sell the business, part of valuing your business is going to be looking at your gross margins.
Yeah, our portfolio is fully allocated on those ones. We've got no more room.
But the other thing here is understanding where the pricing power is coming from. I think a lot of founders would have, they anchor to proprietary data and the fact that all our data is in Xero. But as we're seeing with AI, the ability for someone else to spin up a competing product that just ingests all that data in whatever format we can get it out or extract it out of Xero or through an API. But really, it's going back to what you said before, Don, the fact my accountant's on there, bookkeepers are on there, we have different staff members that have access to it. It's just embedded in how we do things. We also use Dex, which is a plugin for our expense management, which integrates directly. So it's embedded in our workflow and in our suppliers.
The pricing power is really in the accountant side. The accountant couldn't give a shit what I'm paying.
Yeah.
It's to me, yes, there's a switching cost aspect, but for Xero, I don't think that's the main power.
I agree.
It's the accountants.
Yeah, so it probably is a change management switching cost, but on the other side, not on the customer that's paying.
Yeah.
What accountant who's charging hourly rates goes, on behalf of all of my clients, I want to save them all $50 a month. So I'll go through the pain of switching all of this, which is non-billable time. Said no accountant ever, given that they all die at the age of 257 if you add up the hours that they've actually billed their clients. To all the accountants out there, thank you for your service.
We love you. You're welcome at our next investor event.
Well, now that I'm thinking, the accountants that are our shareholders,
yeah,
hopefully they don't listen to this podcast, and if you do, you have a sense of humor. Should we move on?
I think so.
So an example of reverse durability is when a company disappears and goes broke. And we had spoken a couple of times about Swoop Aero. That was the drone company that had knocked back a $100 million acquisition offer in 2022, only to fall into administration in 2024. That has got to mentally leave a dint for some time. It's finally been sold for $1 million. So 100 to 1. An article in Capital Brief by Dan Van Boom says that when fallen drone delivery startup Swoop Aero was sold last month, it fetched just a fraction of the $26 million invested by venture capital firms such as Main Sequence and Folklore Ventures. So so whether you look at the 1 million to 26 or the 1 million to 100, that will hurt. This is part of venture. But what's interesting in the article is some of the creditors and employees and investors have just questioned, like, how did it only go for $1 million? Given there was one offer of 11, there was another offer of 2, and ultimately ended up with $1 million. The article says, so one of the creditors said, I understand things get complicated with cash paid now versus cash paid later and complicated legal clauses getting considered in the decision. But at the end of the day, a deal value of $1 million does not make sense to me, said one creditor. Some employees gave some comments. They said the process was marred by mistrust between the administrators and the family office. The family office was one of the bidders. The result was that it was a chaotic, protracted process in which more than 20 staff were laid off. There seemed to be a lot of flip-flopping back and forth. One former employee said, the team were being used as pawned and threatened to be stood down every second week. There was a day where everyone was stood down first thing in the morning and reinstated at the end of the day. This sounds like an absolute clusterfuck. Having dealt with a couple of administrations, I wouldn't be putting administrators in a hall of fame of their interest is, where's the money? How do I make sure that my fees are billed out? How do I keep my company going? Oh, I could drag this out. And a bit like a good consultant, if you can't be part of the solution, at least extend the problem.
I don't think you're giving them enough credit, Don. They're very good at extracting the entirety of whatever cash is left for their own fees.
It's amazing how it often lands.
To the cent. But yeah, this is interesting. Just reading some of those comments. Yeah, Brain's $11.5 million offer, which it seems was part cash, but also some potential upside in equity later, versus taking $1 million now. I mean, a company that's failed, it's great that they're able to salvage something, but yeah, just on reading what's there, I can understand kind of the questions that are being raised over, was there a better pathway? But it also sounds like this was a pretty drawn out process where I wonder, at the end of the day, what are they actually acquiring at this point? If the team is disintegrated, presumably they've lost any customer goodwill. Like what's left that's been acquired?
Yep.
Can you guys remember what was the downfall? What was the reason for this?
So we had done an episode where we went through some of the underlying stuff around some of the co-founder dynamics. One of the co-founders left. There was a lot of angst between shareholders, board directors with the remaining co-founder. There seemed to be some vibes around personality and decision making, and it just got to a point where lots of people left, a lot of trust got destroyed, the shareholders lost faith, the founder kept holding themselves out as everybody else is wrong but me. That tends not to work out.
At the time, it felt like a Deasy's case study in disintegration, like internal disintegration.
Like they'd raised a huge amount of money and then would, like, despite tens of millions of dollars, not a cent in revenue, I think, on one of the product lines, their manufacturing was like so far behind. From memory, the founder started to scream about the shareholders are making me do things that are unsafe, and like it just all descended. It's a common pattern. You find me a situation where trust and respect starts to disintegrate and all the energy goes towards infighting and conflict and whatever else. There's no energy left to go and achieve greatness.
Yeah.
Because in this world, like the tailwinds of whether it's drone anything, like this is a venture backable space. Like we are in the drone world, or whether it's drone software, like we have an investment. Like you can't say that there's not VC tailwinds here, given the global opportunity in drone management, delivery, the whole box and dice. So I can't see it. Like this is an execution failure.
Yeah, and I suppose when I read the article, like from $100 million valuation down to $1, but then hearing that what actually went on, it just makes me think that the vow was artificial to make the funding required.
Yeah, the problem with these vows is it could have been over like a 5-year thing, and it was early 22 where you could take dog poo, wrap it in tinfoil, and get a unicorn valuation for it. Like all of that has to be taken with a grain of salt, but. Still, I think the big number to anchor on is more than 26 million. 26 million of VC capital went into a company that we did the same puns in our original episode, I do recall. It didn't get off the ground. It didn't take flight, whatever you want to say. But at the same time, this is part of the game. And if I like Like the article of Dan's talks about the issues inside the administration. This is not trying to question decision making and whatever else at that level. And if our world doesn't have risk tolerance for zeros, then we're in trouble. And what looks like good execution to begin with can just descend into madness. You know how you're listening to a podcast and then it stops for an ad and it's really annoying? Well, that's what this is.
Oh, God. What are we doing ads for?
So from an investment perspective, what does Tribe invest in?
We invest in B2B tech companies post-revenue with scaling sales and the early inklings of their scalable sales engine that are looking to expand into the UK or US markets.
One of the main reasons I think Tribe is different is that we focus on a low volume of deals. We roll up our sleeves and add real value to our portfolio.
For sophisticated investors that are interested in investing into early stage technology companies that are scaling into global markets, we have both a fund that invests across a portfolio of ventures and also a syndication model where investors can choose the investments that they prefer on a deal by deal basis.
And enough of that, back to the podcast.
I had totally forgotten last week that the Cut-Through Venture Q1 report had been released. So I thought we could just touch base on a few things because I guess the main message is incremental improvement. When you have a look at the total capital raised, we're slightly ahead of 24, which was slightly ahead of 23, and we keep inching forward.
I've got to confess, when I saw this on socials, I mistook it for the previous one just being reshared. Where did the last quarter go? I was like, what? Oh no, this is the latest one. Yeah, look, it seemed overall positive, but incrementally positive. I don't think there were any real surprises in there.
I was just surprised. Look at biotech and medtech. I mean,
it was that first sentence where it said non-software startups led activity in Q1. I was like, wow, that's not B2B SaaS.
But was that I think, weren't there a few big deals that accounted for a big chunk of that?
Yeah.
But
it reinforces like what we're all speaking about. Like you've been to the US, all these things that we've been speaking about is something true.
Yeah,
totally.
There's little bits of hardware, the 100%. Yeah, deal counts across the board. So there was a little summary. Q1 saw the strongest opening in the quarter since 22, nearly $1 billion raised across 100 deals. Startups outside traditional software only categories dominated. That was your point, Jack. AI first companies topped the charts for deal count in Q1, marking the first time the sector has led the field. So some of the hype is starting to come true. Median deal size hit record highs across every stage. So it's not like one stage had a couple of super deals that distorted everything. It's like pretty good across. And then investor sentiment continued to improve compared to late 24. What's going to be interesting is the next quarters, given all of this Trump tariff and all of this, the stuff that we're dealing with.
The other interesting thing for me, normally Q1 lags a bit Q4, just the nature of Australia and our holiday period in summer and everything else. But we were actually up on Q4. And then it'll be interesting to see the pattern. Yeah, it's Q2, how the US is trickling through to the rest of the world and if that is having an impact on capital flows.
The deals that get into the Cut-Through Venture report, sort of investment into existing but often new companies, new stories, new opportunities. But I think we're really starting to see a ramp up of the 21 to 22 old stories that have not hit their numbers. They've not hit their growth. They're an old story. They can't raise capital anymore for growth. So they're now on the chopping block. They're now being sold. But I'm seeing a lot of stories popping up where founders are learning the reality of what happens when you raise too much capital and don't hit your numbers. And there was a post by Dirk Schaemler that recently talked to a founder who couldn't believe their $2.5 million ARR company could only get an offer of 2 million. Because most founders, 5 times, 10 times. No, if you don't have growth, i.e., sub 30 maybe, you're growing a little bit maybe, then you end up in this bucket where people have to start looking at you from a profit perspective. Now, if you don't know what profit is, I'll put a link to the Wikipedia page. It explains what profits are.
It's an ancient term from last century.
Yeah. But what he says, buyers will do the math, right? 2.5 ARR business. There's a potential to cut costs to reach 500,000 in EBITDA And a 5 times EBITDA multiple, that gives you a valuation of 2.5. That's only 1.1 times ARR. Why? Well, buyers apply discounts for execution risk, operational restructuring, uncertainty in reigniting growth trajectories. And the problem is people like this don't see themselves as the lucky ones. They are the lucky ones that they've actually got an offer, because there's a lot of stuff that's getting far less than that or going to zero and nobody gets anything. And then the other thing people are learning is, what is a liquidation pref? You sold for 20 million, you raised 10 million venture capital, but that last round that you raised, because you weren't willing to take a haircut on valuation, you accepted like a 2 times liquidation pref. Oh, there's nothing left.
Yeah, that really good line in there around the longer a stalled company operates without improving growth or profitability metrics, the further valuation erodes. Like the fact that there is a ticking clock. So for founders that are choosing not to go out to raise, or they're rejecting term sheets or vals that are being given, that clock is still ticking. And yes, I understand why you're trying to establish the business and get better metrics and all of that, but you're being measured on your growth rates, like the delta over time.
Yeah, I love I think it was Simon Beard that said it, like the best time to sell is when you don't want to sell, and the worst time to sell is when you have to sell.
Yeah.
But I think founders often confuse like a funding round, the multiples that you'll get, which is really artificial, versus an M&A. And it goes back to, again, what you're saying, Aaron, like growth rates. And if we're coming in as an early stage investor, we're believing in this big growth story. So like the 5 to 8x multiple that we may pay on your ARR is very different to someone like Dirk, who is coming in as an M&A, most likely going to be a fire sale. So they're either going to go 1x on top line, or it's going to be off your profit.
Yeah, and understanding why is the buyer acquiring it's very different to the investment piece, right? Like they could be acquiring for the IP, for the talent. It could be an acqui-hire. It could be for market share. It could be for geographic market access. And then the multiples that are commanded on that are totally different. But I think founders hear stories of other raisers and index off the headline metric. So they look for comparables and just go, their multiple was this on ARR, therefore we should. But you have to go deeper and actually look at what are the other metrics. What are things like your margins, looking at your ACVs, looking at growth rates over time. And like we saw in the US, cohort analysis. Like that type of detail, there's a lot in it for founders to look at when you're trying to do a comparable.
Yeah. And I think as the year goes on into next year, there's about to be some disappointment that's going to come through. Now we're 20 minutes in and we haven't mentioned AI, and I feel dirty. So I just saw this post, partly recap, but I thought it was really true, from Jason Lemkin. Can a single great developer be 50 to 90% more productive with AI than 12 months ago? Yes. But the thing is, all can be. Every great developer can be 50 to 90% more productive, including your competition. So things aren't actually getting more efficient net in many cases. It's just an arms race. That means more competition, not less. You've got to get ahead of it. And we've said it multiple times. I'm feeling really nervous for some founders that we're interacting with, and they haven't even experimented with some of this basic AI agent stuff. They haven't experimented with any of it. And it's just like, how? You're going to be left so far behind.
Totally agree. Like we're seeing this already.
Something that I'm trying to work out in my head, a little off topic, but like what he's talking about, if we're the only ones using, let's say, Cursor, we have an edge as like a dev team. But then if everyone starts using it, there's no edge. But everyone's going to have to keep using it. So then what happens to that tool? And like my theory is everyone's just going to have to pay for it. If we use GPT for an example, like it's just, you'd be silly not to pay for every junior investor to have GPT as a subscription. So we just absorb that into the cost of our business. So does that become commoditized? Like what happens to these tools that everyone needs to use because it makes you so efficient? It doesn't give you an edge on competitors because everyone uses them.
A commodity product with a zero marginal cost, the profit always goes to zero. That's the Hampton line. And I don't see this stuff any different to like physical world commodities. I actually think even though a lot of this stuff at the moment is cool and fancy and amazing, it's going to end up being a commodity. And
then what do you think? Because if I could just recite some, if we go like medical AI notes for doctors, AI bid writers for tender writers, like all these things where these tools give an edge, but everyone's going to have to use them and absorb the cost. Do you think that will hold true?
Yeah, but like with those medical for the doctors, right? You're moving into the switching costs and stickiness aspect, because if those things are handling a doctor's, so in that situation, we're talking about the doctor's use of it, not the developer's coding of it. The doctor's use of it takes 8 different steps of his workflow end to end, a bit like Zero discussion before. Something else comes out for $10 a month cheaper than the 20 months he's paying, as if I'm not going to go and I'm not going to retrain on my staff. But my development team is using Cursor and I've got 1,000 of them, and someone comes along with exactly the same thing. And it's a click of the button, export your libraries, like you're gone. And then I think what will more happen is the Cursor, Windsurfer, all of those things, it's going to be a feature and quality arms race. And so somebody that, okay, Cursor improves their capacity by 90%, but that still leaves 10% for somebody else to come and improve by 90%. And it's like this fractal, never-ending thing. It's almost like you've read the schedule ahead of time, Jack, because there are some things that we're going to get to that I've just got in. It's like the people that create the foundation often aren't the ones that get the value. The LLMs, like they're creating the foundation, but it's all the stuff we build on top of that foundation, they get the value. So I would be bullish on the vertical solution for the doctor built using Cursor, just not Cursor.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
I think it's a really good conversation. The way I think of AI much like internet. Like when the internet came out, those that got on early had the advantage, but now it's essentially a pipe. And I think AI generally will be the same, where the value will accrue not in the models or the engines, but in what's built off it.
So I'll just go and delete that section of the schedule.
This is the 1 week where I have not read anything in the schedule.
Okay. I know it's
dead true.
And as you'll see as we'll go on, I'm banking on that behavior. So you'll see.
Yeah, no, when I said don't lie, I meant like you don't read it. Come on.
Oh, the other weeks. No, usually I do.
Aaron, I've got a log that shows who logs in and when to this shared doc, and it ain't you, mate. Jack was in like 7 minutes prior.
And that's probably a record.
Let's not share with the audience how this sausage is made. Here's a little video. It seems like digital glasses are now actually a bit more functional. So let me just play this.
As you may have noticed, I snuck a peek back at the shelf a moment ago. I wasn't paying attention, but let's see if Gemini was. Hey, did you happen to catch the title of the white book that was on the shelf behind me?
The white book is Atomic Habits by James Clear.
That is absolutely right. So let's try something harder. I keep losing my hotel key card. Do you know where I last left the card?
The hotel key card is to the right of the music record.
Right.
That is a game changer in my life. I lose my keys, my phone, my dignity, everything.
We're buying these for you. We will chip in and get them for you.
Like Black Mirror is here for a start. This thing that's always on, looking that you can go back to. Like,
You got your laptop.
So Jack, I have one go at you, and now you're going to start coming at me, eh? Jack is referring to the time I left my laptop in Perth at the farm. Thank you for your support, Jack.
Hey, Gemini.
But hang on. But you make a valid point, right? You have those glasses on. The AI knows that the laptop's important and hasn't seen it get from the barn to the car or the airport to the plane and goes, "Oi, are you sure you want to leave your computer there?"
Did you mean to leave your laptop in Heathrow?
Heathrow 4-hour drive where you get it for a podcast ride, dress free.
But it's going to be weird. It's like there'll be logs shared and people will be like, why didn't you have your glasses on for?
Can you imagine in relationships? Well, let's just replay that conversation from yesterday.
That's Black Mirror, but we're here. And this is the beginning of that. Imagine the stuff that's going to be built on top of this.
And when it's just ubiquitous, like without even it being a wearable, it'll just be in the house. It'll be in the physical spaces we occupy.
Now, this is similar to your internet example, Aaron, but this is just another way. I hadn't heard this one before. This is Shamath.
And the person that invented refrigeration made some money, but most of the money was made by Coca-Cola, who used refrigeration to build an empire. And I view these large language models as refrigeration. Will there be some money made in it? I think so. But the Coca-Cola has yet to be built. And those are the companies that are really going to monetize it. And in order to monetize it, here's a basic thing about machine learning that's worth knowing, which is if you take 1,000 of the same inputs and give it to Facebook and Microsoft and Google and Amazon, they'll all come up with the same machine learning model. But if you have one extra thing, one little ingredient that all of those other companies don't have, your output can be markedly different. It's like giving 2 great chefs 3 ingredients, but you give the third chef 1 extra one. That person has the ability to do something very special.
I just thought that was a good point, and it does highlight our role as VC, right? Like we're actually, it's not that we shouldn't invest in our world of all of the LLMs, but if we find someone with that one ingredient, and what is Hamilton Helmer's ingredient? It's a cornered resource. If you've got a cornered resource that's just yours, some kind of IP that can't go somewhere else, you can create a huge amount of value in a very commoditized world.
Yeah. So how do we find the what Google was for the internet? What is that application layer of AI? But this is we talk about this a lot, right? Like, where is the ultimate value going to accrue? What is going to make it durable? It's all playing true at the moment.
Yeah. Jack?
I don't really have anything to add there. Like, I agree with all of that.
With LLMs have given rise to agents, and agents are giving rise to actions on behalf of humans that are automated. And I saw that Visa is currently working on some models to allow your agents access to your credit card so it can just go and buy stuff. But it does open this whole privacy kind of thing. And here's a little video from the president of Signal, Meredith Whitaker. Now, Signal being an app that's all about privacy and keeping it hidden, but I thought this was interesting.
I think there's a real danger that we're facing, and Signal is clocking this pretty closely, of the introduction of this sort of notion of agentic AI into our devices and lives, in part because what we're doing is giving so much control to these systems that are going to need access to data. The value add is something like can look up a concert, book a ticket, schedule it in your calendar, and message all your friends that it's booked, right? So what would it need to do that? It would need access to our browser, an ability to drive that. It would need our credit card information to pay for the tickets. It would need access to our calendar, everything we're doing, everyone we're meeting. It would need access to Signal to open and send that message to our friends. And it would need to be able to drive that across our entire system with something that looks like root permission. Accessing every single one of those databases, probably in the clear, because there's no model to do that encrypted. And if we're talking about a sufficiently powerful model, AI model that's powering that, there's no way that's happening on device, even though on device isn't a prophylactic, isn't going to really solve a lot of those issues. That's almost certainly being sent to a cloud server where it's being processed and sent back. So there's a profound issue with security and privacy that is haunting this sort of hype around agents, and that is ultimately threatening to break the blood-brain barrier between the application layer and the OS layer by conjoining all of these separate services, muddying their data, and doing things like undermining the privacy of your Signal messages because, hey, the agent's got to get in, the agent's got to text your friends, the agent's got to pull the data out of your text and got to summarize that so that, again, your brain can sit in a jar and you're not doing any of that yourself. You're doing something else. So I think we need to be really careful.
My brain's already sitting in a jar and I don't even have anything to do that.
I actually disagree with it. I think we already do this. Applications already have APIs. Applications already integrate with different cross-platform. I have a Do browser plugin in Chrome, which takes control of my browser. I can already purchase things with my credit card details that are stored in Chrome, but the security is the same. They're still encrypted in the browser. The difference is I'm giving an agent control of my browser. But this is where I think the shift to on-premise AI might occur.
Yeah, but I think isn't she going a bit broader than into your messaging system as well? And then we're talking about all of humanity.
Yeah, so
not just weird Aaron.
Yeah. I get the implication for all of humanity, but when you think of what we already do with Facebook, like Facebook knows who's interested in who, and all this data, they can predict your behavior. Amazon can already predict what you're going to buy before you even want it. Like, we're already there. I don't see this. I see it being more of and accelerating it, but to say that AI is creating something unique in that way, I don't think so. I think it gets scary if AI does actually achieve consciousness. Then we're all doomed when it's got access to all of our information and can control everything.
So doomed.
Yeah. But Terminator was a documentary, and we know how it played out. It'd be a quick death.
But I think it's fair to say no Signal user will allow AI bot to access.
Yeah, she's speaking to her audience base. Let's make them all paranoid.
Yeah.
But you've never accepted my request on Signal.
Well, this probably goes back to like when people talk about going fully digital, like getting rid of cash, and there's always the uproar, like the government will know exactly where you are. It's the same play here, but it hooks up to your calendar. It's that privacy of just, they know every step if something goes wrong. But yeah, I'm still in the boat. Like, I've got nothing to hide, so I get this small efficiency gain. So it's like 100% I'd hook it up.
Same. And having worked in intelligence, the government already knows all that shit anyway. They've got access. It's no different.
It's interesting that like China was always slapped for being an authoritarian state and attracts its citizens, and what a terrible place to live. But if you have a look at the US billionaires now that supplying all of this tech, amazingly, it's a good thing. This is Larry Ellison.
Everyone would see it. Your body cams will be transmitting that. The police will be on their best behavior because we're constantly recording, watching and recording everything that's going on. Citizens will be on their best behavior because we're constantly recording and reporting everything that's going on.
Ellison's vision is for AI to analyze data from this network of cameras in real time in an attempt to prevent crime while also tracking and influencing public behavior for a safer society. However, the idea raises serious privacy concerns. Critics argue.
Yeah, so we're going to be ending up in the same space anyway.
Are we heading towards Minority Report, where it'll predict people are going to commit a crime before they commit the crime? I think you also look at advances in human-computer interface. So when we can communicate with each other directly, based on thought, like the world is getting more transparent.
But I was watching, we're about to go into a few clips just of AI is really powering robotics, but I was listening to something and then I'm watching my 3 kids because it was early. I was in the kitchen so I'm watching these things, having this existential crisis of where we're heading as a species and what a human's going to do. And I've got a 5-year-old, a 4-year-old, an 18-month-old that I'm supposed to be stewarding. It's heavy, man.
Don't sell the farm, Don.
No, but that's true. Capital always wins, right? So my thing in life that I can do is just to not fuck up and make sure that I maintain capital, because capital always wins. That's not a moral comment. It's not what it should be, and that's the biggest thing I can do.
He or she who has the resources. Right, absolutely.
Like I said, here's just a couple of things I found interesting during the week from a robotics point of view. Some of it's fairly basic, but I don't know, my brain keeps going, wow, we're here already. Like I'm seriously investigating for home, for the 10 acres, like robotic mowers, autonomous. They're a thing at a reasonable price point now. Like just cruising around, and they're quite smart and are unlikely to run over and kill one of the animals unless I tell it to.
Yeah, my strategy of having 4 kids to do all that stuff hasn't played out. In fact, it's inverse.
All right, so let's rattle through these. Let me share screen. Just make sure that you can see. So you can see that. This is just a robotic janitor, right, that goes around cleaning the toilet, the hotel room. Like, it's functionally doing its thing and doing it pretty well. And it just cruises around the floors.
That is awesome.
This one, this is just a home masseuse thing. I've got really bad lower back sometimes, and my wife's thumbs are just not capable. Like, I've often thought of, can't we just create like a little robotic arm where you choose? It's here, right? And if you can get it perfect the way you like it, as if you wouldn't just be getting one of these.
I need that for my shoulder.
Jack, I need to know what's going through your mind, because no,
it just cracks me up, Don. I can so imagine you ordering this and having this at home.
He'll be on the podcast with it running in the background.
Let's keep going. My first business ever was a roofing company. This is a little robot that is viably installing roof shingles on a roof. They put it up through some pulleys. It gets in place. It uses some laser measurement things. You set it up, you bugger off, and it does it. This is cooking and cleaning at home. Again, a bit like the janitorial one. But what is getting clever? Like, that's striking a match and lighting the candle. Like, that is some dexterity that is only really possible with AI models. I might actually play the sound of this one, because he's actually got a few good points. Just hold on.
This does beg the question: what are we going to do? Like,
no, this is the extensional. I know what I'm going to do, but
get a massage 24/7.
It's more, what state will I be in? Let me try again. Hold on.
I had a laugh when you said postcode. I couldn't stop laughing.
The what?
When you were saying Ash, it's similar to what I do, but in a different postcode.
Different cosmos, Ash. Different universe. I'll introduce you. Hang on.
Without ever being trained in it before. And it's thanks to this new AI model by robotics startup Physical Intelligence. The Pi 0.5 foundation model enables robots to perform complex tasks in entirely new environments, from cleaning kitchens to making beds in homes they have never seen during training. Unlike traditional robots confined to controlled factory settings, Pi 0.5 demonstrates meaningful generalization by understanding both physical skills and what objects are used for in different situations.
It's the meaningful generalization that these AI models are allowing. And so it's not like we haven't had robotics, but the ability to take something that's never been to the environment before, it hasn't been trained on it, and to do it, that's the game changer that we're in.
That's pretty amazing, isn't it? And this technology has been coming for a while, but now this step change we're seeing now, that exponential part of the curve, where the variant applications, the dexterity, the fact it can just come into an unknown environment and operate, bloody impressive.
But here's one of our portfolio companies that actually has been working on this for about a decade, Swan Farm. Like, this is their music, by the way, on top of their video. I've got to talk to Andrew as to who came up with this, but just have a watch and a listen. For those at home, we're just looking at an autonomous robot tractor that is doing stuff in a field, but I'm just here for the music. Surely that is more like an American political ad?
Actually, yes, now you say that. Maybe it speaks to broadacre farmers. Maybe that's...
Yeah. No, well, I'm running a session for them in a couple of weeks, and I'm embedding that music into my entrance.
I was going to say, it makes great entrance music.
Yeah, and then final one, I feel I dictate a little bit too much and I don't allow others to come in. So, Aaron, for this next one, if you could just read it.
Why does this feel like a setup?
So, this is...
But there is some truth in it.
Oh,
thank you, Jack.
There is. Look, I would rather a robot.
So for people at home, this is a beauty salon that is effectively saying that they could never be replaced by AI because an AI couldn't wax a butthole.
When we talked about having a podcast for a VC fund, I never thought we would be using the lines "wax a butthole," even though a lot of portfolio performance feels like that at times. Oh, I did like that. Mark from IFL referred to our podcast as making great endurance training material for his last man standing run. Like, it is torture listening.
It prepares you for some epic shit.
This is what happens when Ash is not here. To Jack's point, though, this is the problem with people that think that their role in life cannot be removed. Mark Andreessen says that when AI does everything else, VC might be the last job still be done by humans. I have a feeling that we're probably going to be the first ones actually fully removed. But the point of the prior rather silly video is that I don't think anybody's immune. But let's just have a look at what Mark says.
Every great venture capitalist in the last 70 years has missed most of the great companies of his generation. Right. So the great VCs have a success record of getting, 2 out of 10 or something of the great companies of the decade. Right. And so if it was a science, you could eventually have somebody who just like dials in and gets 8 out of 10. But in the real world, it's not like that. It's just you're in the fluke business. And so there's an intangibility to it. There's a taste aspect, the human relationship aspect, the psychology. By the way, a lot of it is psychological analysis. Who are these people? How do they react under pressure? How do you keep them from falling apart? How do you keep them going crazy? How do you keep them going crazy yourself? So you end up being a psychologist half the time. And so it is possible. I don't want to be definitive, but it's possible that is quite literally timeless.
I do feel a little bit seen that someone acknowledges that portfolio support is effectively just being a psychologist half the time.
Yeah. Isn't everything you described a reason why AI might win, though?
So I try and layer it. The bit that he's anchoring on, and just keep in mind, look at the size of that head. Clearly, he has a bigger brain than me. But like with some of the soft skill stuff we do with founders of the offsites and the missions, and trying to spend time with them and see how they react to stress and all of that kind of stuff. That's just because there isn't a data set for us to access. But with the way the world's going, and with the ability to read social media and the glasses, like I just think those behavioral data sets, they inevitably become available. So for that skill of making a call on that, and then really there is a bit of a view that failure is baked in because of a series of ingredients either missing or present that aren't in the right sequence. And I think an AI could at very least enrich your decision making around that. So is maybe a VC firm just one person per entire portfolio making the final decision on what the AI is advising?
Yeah, I think you're totally agree with your first point there, that things like the glasses we were looking at before, suddenly when you have technology that's just ubiquitous, watching everything we do, listening to everything, suddenly there's new data sets created around psychology. And I think that solves for a big chunk of what he's talking about. So I think it's only a matter of time. And yeah, I think much like tech companies, much like what we're seeing with ventures, is fewer resources required to scale something. And I think VC is going to be the same. We're already seeing it. Like we're seeing VC employment numbers down. We're seeing number of VCs down. We're seeing bifurcation of the market. The big capital allocators will keep attracting big chunks of capital.
Yeah, on that, Aaron, I think, where am I going with this? I think, the assumption that there'll be new data sets, even if we're wrong there, I still think today you could still take an AI bot to VC because there's multiple ways you can attack it. And when I look at how we approach venture versus someone like Richard Moore, like we have a very different approach. And if someone was to just go after purely on the size of the TAM and metrics, like revenue metrics, then you could just take an AI bot to analyze that today with the current data set. But I think if we look at the public markets with ETFs, like we went from a fund manager to an ETF, like that could still happen to the VC market. And it just means that the managers that are charging a fee just have to command a better return than the average.
Yep, good point.
The ETF for VC is a bloody interesting concept.
And it so definitely could definitely happen. Like the data's already there where you could just take a data approach using an AI bot. And then, as Mark said, like it's the fluke business. Like as long as you're playing in the parameters and you hit 1 to 2, you're going to get the outlier return that returns it.
Yeah. And to your point of what we're seeing, there was a post by Michael Benezra Job boards like LinkedIn and Glassdoor report 500 to 800 VC analyst positions in 2024. That's down from 6,000 in 2019. So before COVID and all of that boom. And I think that's related to this next one, another post by Jason Ledkin saying SaaStr is a 5-person entity, just 5 of us. And we do a lot. There are agencies and contractors, but the full-time team is just 5. Before AI, maybe we could respond to a handful of email-based issues and a few chats, and we could not provide any one-on-one advice. So much has changed in the last few weeks. Our AI has now handled 139,000 conversations. Most of them are epically good. Our AI can advise founders, review VC pitch decks, review board materials, blah, blah, blah. It goes through all of this. In this age of change in business software like we've never seen before, get on fast, get on real. Don't just be adding some AI. And so I think you're seeing it across this industry. There was another video which isn't in this, but there's a lot of tools now that are out there to analyze pitch decks. And so that base level role, but somebody's still got to make a digestion on what it's actually picking up.
The other thing it's a bit of a segue, but the other thing on my mind is how long before we have AI to replace the founder? Like, just be able to sit here and just say, rather than AI build a product, but AI actually build a business. So I have this idea, go and validate it for me. I have this idea, go and build the product stack. I have this idea, go and build the marketing engine.
Well, and another weird one in my algo is actually a video advertising to people to create fake AI models that then go and generate income selling products. And the pitch was, don't bother about creating content for spicy videos. You can make $1 million doing yada, yada. So humans creating other human-like stuff is here as well. It's not just at the founder level and the company level, like it's at the country level, and some smart people have their views of where we're heading without wanting to get too down into the disturbing what's the point rabbit hole. This is Eric Schmidt, the former CEO of Google.
Imagine a situation where attacks that we cannot even imagine are unleashed by China in an adversarial thing. We have no concept of having a super intelligent opponent where we're not as intelligent as they are. Everyone assumes that it's a battle of missiles and aircraft carriers. That's not correct. It will be a battle of swarms of drones. Those drones will be highly intelligent, highly planned, and they'll do maneuvers that no one can anticipate. We collectively are not ready for that. Imagine a situation where China has invented new algorithms for military attacks and defense that we cannot even conceive of. Remember, I'm discussing a world where humans have a partner that is smarter than the collection of those people. As I said, this will happen in our lifetimes, and it's important that we get there first. If you take a look at Ukraine, Russia right now, you see the future of war. I'm assuming, by the way, that China would start by cyber attacks and so forth. There's evidence that these new systems will be able to come up with zero-day exploits that we cannot foresee. A zero-day exploit is something we've never seen before and we can't anticipate. There's lots of people who were worried that biological attacks can be done, and there's a report from the Emerging Biothreats Commission this week with the great details, and there's a classified version that all of you should take a look at.
So I thought a bit of positivity for the episode.
It is scary to think about. Like when AI starts developing biological weapons that have a long lag between infection and incubation and what's the word I'm looking for? What's the fucking word I'm looking for?
I don't know, but what a word could be window, like close it so we don't hear the birds.
Yeah, it's closed.
How's that one?
Yeah, but the lag between infection and symptoms being present and then but being contagious in that period, like suddenly you have something that can wipe out an entire population before it's even detected. And so it's a scary bloody world. Back to your point before, Don, raising kids in this world is it's a scary proposition right now. Could we go too dark?
Yeah. No, we won't go too dark. Now, that was obviously a very anti-China thing, and I'm not sure this is pro-China, anti-China, but this, I think, was just interesting why I think capitalist countries are in a lot of trouble, because the system is broken. So I just thought I'd play this.
America, you can change political parties, but you can't change policies. In China, you cannot change the party, but you can change policies.
So in that time, China ceased to be communist. Is that what you're saying?
China is a market economy, and it's a vibrant market economy, but it is not a capitalist country. Here's why. There's no way a group of billionaires could control the Politburo as billionaires control American policymaking. So in China, you have a vibrant market economy, but capital does not rise above political authority. Capital does not have enshrined rights. In America, capital, the interest of capital and capital itself has risen above the American nation. The political authority cannot check the power of capital. And that's why America is a capitalist country, but China is not.
Have a look at America, even have a look at Australia, have a look at capitalistic countries where capital and capitalism becomes the dominant thing. I just don't have a lot of strong faith that our democratic systems can actually handle this new wave, because we're not designed for the decision making that's going to need to come.
100% agree. I got nothing to add, but just we're not ready.
So Jack, this is where you chime in and you say, so the lesson for founders.
No, I don't have anything to add.
The lesson for founders: have a really good exit in the next 5 years.
Why don't we try and actually do some things that are helpful for founders? Like, I think this little video here is the direction that marketing, AI, and automation is going in. Just hold on.
Hey, Astral, we're really far behind on growth, and demo day is in 10 days. Do you think you can find people complaining about our competitors online and start conversations with them? And don't forget to act human.
Hey, Savannah, I'm on it. First, I'm checking Product Hunt and G2 reviews to find potential customers who've had issues with our competitors' products. All right, found 44 potential matches. Next, I need to understand who they are. Let me take a look at their LinkedIn profiles. Great. I've identified 19 individuals that fit our customer persona. Now, we need a standout way to reach out to them. I'm heading to Perplexity to search for any content they've created. Articles, videos, social posts. Perfect. Now I have unique conversation starters for each person. I'll go back to LinkedIn and send them each heavily personalized connection requests. Next, I'll follow up with natural messages to understand their pain points and how we might help.
Great. Well done, Ash.
You can actually do that now with some fairly basic like AI agents, but that's the level of creativity we're seeing in the founders that are really getting some traction. It's okay, what are my individual demand generation initiatives? And an example, find people complaining about my competitor's product, then map them against my ICP, go to all the places they've ever posted so I can understand the kinds of things that are interested to them, blah, blah, blah. You get it. Like that is here now. And it's that kind of thinking that people need to be taking in order to get some of those early wins.
Yeah, I love the retargeting approach of that. I think a lot of founders index activity on marketing, like broad messaging, but to actually have a targeted campaign looking for a point of like a purchasing decision of an existing customer of a competitor looking to switch is really smart. But these types of tools, like they're there. If your founders aren't using them, like now is the time you have to, because like we were saying before, it's just becoming the standard by which you must operate in order to remain competitive.
Like one of our case studies is we use an automated tool on LinkedIn. You go in, it's not AI at all, actually. You just go in, I use a Sales Navigator to go and find people with certain things. We run these events. Someone never met before came to one of the events. Next minute is one of the biggest LPs in our individual deals and a shareholder in our headco from $139 a month activity. Now, there was some real value add in there. The message was relevant to this person. The events were unique and invite. They weren't the standard shit that this industry does. So you can't just leave it all to automated systems. But when you string together these technologies with some differentiation, with some value add, and make it relevant. I'm just surprised at the number of founders that aren't doing any of this stuff.
Or if they are, they haven't first taken the time to actually, what is their strategy choice cascade? Where are they operating? Being really tight on that. That informs your tactical. Then actually defining your proper funnel of activities, and then using AI to automate all of that. Or not even AI, like you were saying, like the tools we're using, they're not AI, but they're just automatically out there 24/7 running for us.
I think the point you said there, Don, like you haven't gone about it like the majority. Like you're not sitting in the middle doing the same thing, sending the same automated message that I see straight, that I filter as noise out of it straight to the rubbish box. And it's that's why founders, I think they've got to really work out, is it a strategy problem or an execution problem? And like we're very quick to say the strategy's not working, outbound's not working, but then you actually sit down and look what you're sending. Like if you're sending garbage, of course, you're going to get nothing back. But as you said, Don, it was an automated message to then invite them to some value, like a really high touch event. Like it's all these different ways of going about it, but the channel still worked.
Yeah. And often what I find is founders give up too quickly or too early or don't test. Now, there's a young guy, Matt Lakjev, who's one of these, I made $1 million on LinkedIn. Let me show you how. I've been watching his stuff for ages. I haven't been engaging. And then I get an email out of the blue on the weekend. And it just had something like, I analyzed 5 years of my messages on LinkedIn, and here are the results for getting the best bookings. That was interesting to me. That was some value add. So I was willing to engage in the convo, and he sent through this 12-page report. And the results were he took 200,000 messages across 6 years. And he then looked at the messages, the number of booked meetings, the percentage bookings, and what the median span in days were. And if bookings to have a sales call with him happened 0.9% of the time between 0 and 10 messages. Between message 40 and 50, that moved up to 41% of the time. Now, here's the thing. When you get into it, they aren't just, hey, buy my shit type messaging. He's actually engaging with somebody that's opted in. There's questions, there's sharing of value. Like he shared a lot of reports, a lot of templates, a lot of free this and that. But the median time to get that percentage was like 122 days. Like I know so many founders that will get all excited and I'm going to do this initiative, and they don't get stuff, and after a week, that's it. But if you combine some tenacity, some perseverance with some true value, like that's where some of those results come in.
Yeah, I know a lot of founders that don't want to pester. I don't want to send a follow-up. I don't want to send a second message because it's
but the second message is often shit. The ones that I hate are sorry to bother you.
Yeah.
That is such a weak as piss approach. Like you're either turning up with no hang up or embarrassment because you're turning up with something of value to add.
Yeah.
Apologizing straight out of the gate.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. But if you're delivering value, if what you are sharing is of value to others, surely you would want to share that with others. And if this is the mental shift, and it took me a while to understand this in one of my previous businesses, when you are genuinely solving someone else's problem, you want to take that message to the world and tell everyone. And so be of service to others, have really valuable content, have lead magnets that actually are valuable, not just some generic piece of crap. And you will inevitably get engagement at some point. But it is a noisy market. You've got to keep going.
Jack?
I got nothing to add there, but that's actually such a good report.
Yeah, no, I'll put the.
How good is that data?
Yeah. So finally, a post from Ricky Zevta. He's the CEO of Deep Space. Great guy that shares a lot of, I think, high value content on LinkedIn. He says, I got cold called on a Sunday afternoon. Curious. I picked up and asked, why did you choose to call me on a weekend? His answer, most of my competition sticks to 9 to 5, but I know decision makers like you are working late, catching up when it's quiet, no meetings, no Slack. So I figured I'd give it a shot. He told me 60% of his pipeline comes from weekends. Hard to argue with the logic. You don't go fishing where everyone else is casting. Do you think this will become more common in B2B, he asks. I had two thoughts to that, but...
Go, you got to share.
Well, just like most people don't like cold calling. And actually, if you've got the right message and a bit of practice and a bit of thick skin, and cold calling is a good channel for you, go and do some work on yourself to shed the issues that stop you from picking up the phone. I think often cold calling is just not used enough. On one hand, I'm one of those really pain in the ass personalities that would go, how dare you call me on my weekend, chap? But at the same time, I also respect, it's like, yeah, okay, cutting through. Yeah, let's have this convo. But it'll depend off if it's of something of value. If it's something of value, I'll get over myself. If it's not, I'll become an absolute childish wanker.
I remember there were these kids at a startup weekend, and they were doing something for, I say kids, they were like late teens, but they were doing something, it was for dentists, I think, from memory. And they knew that they were doing desktop research, identified this dentist would be at his kid's soccer game on the weekend. And they're like, oh, we don't want to pester him. Like, if you are genuinely solving his problem, he'll probably want to hear that. So they actually went to this guy at the sideline of his kid's soccer game. This guy ended up, after the game, driving into the startup weekend to mentor them over the weekend because the problem was so painful for him, he wanted it solved. And
That's awesome.
yeah, it's such a good story. But again, if you're doing something genuine that is really solving someone's problem, and it's particularly if it's a hair on fire problem for them, they want to hear that shit. And getting cut through where you've made the effort, like you've demonstrated you are making the effort to go to them, it's different.
Yeah, I think there's a bit of a mid-wit meme here, Don. And you could think the person in the middle is like doing all these email chains, all this nurturing over automated AI messages, and then the two people on the either end are just like, pick up the phone and call them.
Yeah.
So true.
But a lot of people have resting arsehole face, but actually they're good people that are happy to have a chat and they're happy to help. And like, especially some really wealthy people that seem really scary, they then don't get asked much because everybody's scared. It's like the really attractive person actually never gets any dates because everyone's too afraid. Now, I've never had to worry about that, but that's what I've read. That's what I've read in books.
I thought you were self-diagnosing why you never got any dates.
No. Why I'm good with protection is it's been a long episode, so I'm going to spare you theme of the week. I guess my theme has been rabbit holes, but I'm simultaneously so excited by so many things, also a bit scared by a few things. But anyway, have you got any one-line themes of the week?
Bloody exciting time to be deploying capital. I'm just, all of this change is creating so many opportunities, and we're seeing bloody good deals coming through.
Yeah, and some carry will get some dollars into your pockets to get some better windows.
Yeah.
Jack?
Yeah, I don't really have a takeaway. Like the theme, we've got a lot on. I feel like we've got multiple deals going on at the same time, overlaying with quarterly updates and a lot of portfolio stuff. So I think there's a lot on, but not a real takeaway.
Fair. All right, Sharts. So we've got an election this weekend. This is the only graph you need to know. So for people at home, on the left axis, it's trust in government and then knowledge of history. And the more knowledge of history you have, the less trust in government you have. I think that's probably right. This is a chart that shows that the primary vote percentage on this one, this is out of the AFR, actually has the Liberal National Party ahead of Labor, which, given Dutton's campaign, I'm a little surprised at, but I guess Labor can still form government with the other independents. But Albanese has gone up as preferred Prime Minister and Dutton has come down, which doesn't really surprise me. But on the two-party preferred vote basis, it's Labor ahead of Liberal. My gut feel is that Labor's going to take it out, but have been surprised in the past. Robin Williams just has a little reminder for us all here.
I'll remember this, ladies and gentlemen. It's an old phrase, basically anonymous, but politicians are a lot like diapers. They should be changed frequently and for the same reason. Keep that in mind next time you vote. Good night.
I miss him.
Yes. He was so good. This is the percentage of electricity generation from solar and wind in Spain and Portugal. Have you been reading what's happened in Spain and Portugal? Like just mass blackouts. This was shared from Jake from Venue Now. He's saying that the data doesn't demonstrate that it's the fault of wind and solar, but I've done no research, and therefore I will just say that it will. One of the things I do question, however, is in an AI world with how much power we need, like we have to have some baseload clean energy. Solar and wind and stuff ain't gonna solve it. But for those at home, Spain and Portugal from about 2005 has just been exponential, going from 0% to now about 40%, whereas the rest of the world is 13% for solar and wind. Now, who's using a lot of power? It's chatbots, but have a look at this. This is a chart going back to January 24. ChatGPT has gone from 130 million users to nearly 300. Microsoft Copilot, bow, that's gone nowhere. So ChatGPT still has the biggest usage and the biggest brand reputation. Some people out there love moving averages. If a moving average was enough, there'd be more billionaires. But if you have a look at the S&P 500 going back to 2010, anytime it's given a little kiss to the 200-day moving average, that's been its reversal point, and then it's gone back up. Now, we're not at the 200. Like the 200 on that is 4,600, and we're at 5,000 and something. So if this was to play out again, we've still got a way to go. But once it hits that line, it's like a magical trampoline. These two charts here are small business profits plus labor expense. So that's trying to calculate wages. And for those at home, since 1947, that's dropped from 70% down to 58.5%. Corporate profits, however, plus rental income, so effectively passive dollars, the low on that is 4%, and now that's sitting at pretty well a 60-year high of 13%. So that's probably not surprising, but ordinary labor and small business is getting less and less of the pie. Big tech, big business, and passive capital is getting a bigger end of the pie. Just as AI is coming on, this is the kind of thing that gives rise to very unhappy populations and revolutions. But there's a lot of money that's gone straight back into Bitcoin. And if you look at for the charts at home, since mid-April, we've gone from outflow up to almost the highest inflows in a decade into Bitcoin ETFs. There is a lot of money pouring back into Bitcoin. This is a chart that I saw from Adam Schwab, who's the co-founder and CEO of Luxury Escapes. Do you remember Satire, that company selling like handbags and stuff in COVID, reached like $1 billion valuation and everyone thought it was lunacy? This is just a chart showing the current value of all Satire shares. It's on the ASX. And then the value of shares the founder has sold since 2021. And the founder, Dean Mintz, has managed to sell more shares than what the company's actually worth now. So somebody has won in this transaction, and it ain't the ordinary shareholders. Who will be the next pope? Got quite a few text messages after the last episode with my Jesus memes. Seem to get some conversations going. But yeah, 3 popes all vying it out. One at 29%. What's that? Pietro Parolin. Then Luis Antonio Tangle. And then Matt Zuppi. So one's at 29%, one's at 23%, and one's at 11%. I think it's great that you can bet in financial markets on who's the next pope.
How much money's going down on Trump being the next pope?
Yeah, that's true. If you ever think you're not great at tech or web design, customer journey mapping, you're probably still better than this person. So this is the online death certificate request function from a US state. And it says step 1, who is on the death certificate? And there's 2 buttons, myself or someone else.
Oh, wow.
Constipated, an adjective, emotional or spiritual blockage caused by having to deal with too many cunts in one day.
Jeez.
I found this funny. These are two babies in prams talking to each other. It's a cartoon in the New Yorker. I worry about my mum's screen time, but it's the only thing that seems to soothe her. And yeah, if kids could look at us parents on our phones, I think that's probably true.
Yep.
The next time you have imposter syndrome, remember, Katy Perry thinks she's an astronaut. Did you see how much of a hiding these people got for this trip?
Oh, far out.
And this is what happens when people get so wealthy and lose touch. The general populace doesn't like it. Breaking news, Katy Perry declares herself as Pope after reading the Bible for 11 minutes.
The internet.
Before you marry a person, you should first make them use a computer with slow internet, to see who they really are.
There's some truth in that.
This is the wife to the husband. Wife, grow up. You can't believe everything you read on the internet. The husband, I don't need this. There are local singles in my area dying to meet me. And then finally, I need to get prepped for this one. There's a cause of death. The patient laid down the boogie and played that funky music till he died. Now, Jack, you're too young to know this, and I'll have to edit this out for the YouTube version. So I'll just leave that running for the final ending of this shit show of an episode. What are we looking forward to?
I'm looking forward to the comments from this episode. Please direct all comments to Don at tribeglobal.vc.
Yeah. Looking forward to it. We're going to catch up call with an ex-portfolio company after this. And it's going to be some really good intel for a company that we're looking at doing an investment in the similar space.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that'll be good. We just formally announced our funded places for South Australian founders. So looking forward to seeing the applications that come through for that. So if you're in South Australia and you want to come and spend more time with us lunatics in London, then jump on the website and apply for a funded space to join us in the UK.
Yeah, they're really looking forward to that. That is exciting. I'm looking forward to, but not looking forward to it. We got another public holiday in Queensland, like third in a row. What kind of lunacy is this?
Yeah, they need to spread this stuff out.
All right, I need a cup of tea and some facilities before our next session.
Sounds good.
Sounds good. Thanks, boys.
All right, lads.
See you guys.
See ya.
See yous.